So all of this here is not really on like we are learning. What I want to say is we are all learning together here. Don't expect this to be an extremely professional expert talk here. There is no expert in this space. This space is still so young. So I'm just here to bring over what I have learned, and hopefully I can spark some new people to join us, to become a rater, to become an analyst, and yeah, just here to help. But I guess we are all going to be experts here soon. Thank you, Thomas. All right, as Thomas mentioned, we are quickly going to go through all of the questions, trying to not spend too much time here, because then the more interesting part is probably going to be the part where we look at, okay, how do we ideally answer these questions? So here, the first section, those of you who have written the reports before know that, is looking at the value proposition of the protocol you're analyzing. And the first question is called novelty of the solution. And so what we're looking for here is you want to ideally identify what is it that the protocol creates and delivers and produces. And you want to find out whether this is something innovative, something new. Has it existed before? If not, then you want to write that down. If yes, maybe was it a pure fork? Was it like a direct hard fork, or copy and paste of another protocol with just a new design on top? Or did they change nuances, details that make it more innovative and that actually improved the previous protocol? And also here you can see that is represented in the answer sort of table, going from top. They have introduced technical as well as organizational innovations, which would give them higher points, down to the protocol has not introduced any innovations at all so far. And it's basically just, another yield scheme, or, copy and paste of something that is already existing. Next slide. Yes, thank you. So market fit and market demand, I think it's mostly self-explanatory. This score evaluates how strong does the product satisfy a market demand, and is there a really specific market for that, or is it operating in a small niche? And also, is the timing right? Like, is it an awesome product but nobody uses it, or is it really where the users are and where the demand is? And so here the answers also go from yes, it has achieved clear market fit in a promising market, down to the protocol has failed to find a market fit, and there's not a clear strategy so far. And so you want to have sort of a feeling of where in between those numbers your protocol is that you're rating. Also, I forgot to mention, I think the market itself is also an important part of this question. So ideally, you want to nail it down to what specific market is the protocol targeting. They might be targeting different several markets, right? So you want to answer that here. Hey, they are at DEX, but they also offer XYZ. So combinations of different markets might be possible too. Next slide. This one is target market size is pretty simple. You can read it from the title. We want to know what is the market again, and how big is it? And usually what you do here is you take two different, you answer that question by looking at two different things. One is traditional finance market, to use it as like an example of how did the traditional finance market develop? How big is it? Let's take the lending and borrowing market. You can do a Google search and check out for what are the latest metrics on that. And then you want to compare to the DeFi market. How has that developed? With regards to TVL, for instance, or with regards to outstanding loans, if you look at the lending and borrowing market, and just describe the overall market that this protocol is operating in. And also, like, does this market show any potential of growth, or is it maybe you know, is it going down? Are people still excited about it? Are people still investing in it? Obviously, market cycles play a big role in here too, so you need to take that out of your calculations. But in general, you can look at things like TVL, user numbers, and compare this to traditional finance. Okay. So this one is also, I would say, when you find the metrics, it's a rather simple question to answer. This is basically the combination of the first, the second, and the third question, right? So now we have defined the market. We know whether this protocol has any market fit, and now we want to compare it to its competitors. So ideally, you want to look at all, or like, let's say, at least the top 5 competitors, and compare this ideally through something like a market share. There is sometimes really great Dune Analytics dashboards, or there is a token terminal, DeFi Pulse. There's lots of data providers that you can use and look for to also categorize them by a certain market segment, right? And then you can apply these different metrics to compare where is my protocol that I'm rating currently standing. And it's also important here, we really want to look at where is it currently standing, right? And not what does the roadmap promise us where it's going to be in 6 months from now. Because that we don't know whether it's going to achieve it, so we cannot rate it. We only rate what we see today and not what could be in the future. So I think this is an important point to take out here. People sometimes tend to interpret competitiveness, you know, and add some things that are not there yet but could potentially come. And I think it's important that we look at the hard metrics here. And there's lots of metrics available. Few examples here would be for again, taking the lending protocol, you would use outstanding loans, Aave, Compound as like the market leaders, and then the rest of the pack that follows. And you want to take a look at, okay, if I add all these TVLs up, or all these outstanding loans up, how big is the percentage of the protocol I'm currently rating of this overall market? Usually a percentage here gives you a pretty good indicator to give out a score then. Okay. And this one is the last question, and for me, one of the most exciting ones, I think. But it's also a rather difficult one, and I see lots of people misunderstanding it or oversimplifying the question, but it's okay because it really is a difficult one, and it should potentially be 2 questions. Anyway, here, what we want to look at is, you probably all have heard of the term money Lego, right? And our theory, or the theory here, is that the deeper your money Lego in the technology stack, the more important the protocol is. So if you have something like, let's say, Maker's DAI, right? That is a stablecoin that is used everywhere. It's a really important puzzle piece to DeFi. Without it, DeFi would probably not have existed as it is today. So this is definitely a really important piece of money Lego that everybody uses and everybody sort of integrates into their products, right? Every second liquidity pool probably is a DAI XYZ pool. And so this is where we want to go with that question is, first of all, how many other protocols have built on top of the service or of the smart contracts or of the product that your protocol is offering? And the more have built on top, the less the harder it is to replace that protocol. I think this is essentially the question, like, is your protocol easy replaceable? Can I just create another yield farming scheme and everybody's going to move their liquidity over to my pools because I provide more tokens than the others? Or am I somewhat protected against this liquidity draining because my protocol is really a base layer and an important piece of DeFi? This is one part of the question. The second one also looks at partnerships. which can be anything, can be partnerships with wallets, partnerships with media outlets or whatever. I think here it comes, the question here is like, how valuable is the partnership? And here you need to be careful of logo collections on the website. Like anybody can display lots of logos and hey, we were named here and we partner with them. But I think the important information here we want to find out is, okay, what does the protocol actually get from that partnership? Is it an exclusive partnership? And is it important for the protocol to have its products as they provide them today? Cool. I think that's yes, somebody has a question. Yeah.
I mean, what other, is there a specific kind of metric that you would use to, validate a partnership? Or, I mean,
good question. Not really a metric. This is more like this is not really a quantitative assessment, I think, that you can do here. It's more a critical thinking that you need to apply and try. You don't need to go through every single partnership they list, right? But you need to make yourself, you need to get to an understanding whether there are any valuable partnerships among that I guess it's not really a metric, but it's I
mean, would like a token swap, be a considerable metric, or is that kind of passive and not really a partnership or integration?
Yeah, no, it's rather passive, I would say. I think it depends. Like what I wanted to say is there, the question you need to ask yourself, is there a real benefit from this partnership, or is it just to have a nice Medium article? Could the product exist without the partnership? Does this partnership improve their product? I think that is the question you need to answer. And if that is yes, then it's a high quality partnership. And there's not really a metric that you can give here. It's more like an assessment you need to do. Does that make sense?
Certainly, thank you.
Sure. Awesome. Next slide. So now the next step is going to be, we're going to go through these questions again, but this time I want to show you guys examples of how other raters have done it, because I think this is an easy way to show what is good quality, and also to learn how from like other experts that we have in the community. So here on the value proposition and novelty of solution, the first question that we just discussed before, I took the example of 88 MPH, which was done by Sant and Mayank, and they have really provided a extremely comprehensive answer. And I think you can see here on the left-hand side, I added what my personal minimum expectation of the answer should include, and what is a bonus on top of that, so that you would probably be eligible for like a winning spot in let's say season 2 or one of the other contests that we have. And I think what makes this answer here really good and on high quality is that they, first of all, they provide an easy overview of what is the protocol. Like, what does it do? It's a non-custodial yield generating protocol built on Ethereum using Solidity smart contracts. The protocol acts as an intermediary between depositors who want to earn passive income and yield generating protocols such as Aave, Compound, and Yearn for yield farming. So a pretty simple two-liner or one-liner of what does it do. What are the products? How does it work? And what is new? And this is all covered in here. It doesn't need to be too deep, especially the how does it work is sometimes a bit complicated. It's very good for yourself, for your own learning to understand it. And sometimes the innovative solution of what makes a product innovative is in the details. And it's always great if you can find that out, right? But these are like the 4 main points I would like to see in that answer is what is new or what is not new. Like you can also answer, hey, nothing here is new. It's just a copy and paste. And so you're already seeing that this is, it requires a bit of an understanding of the market sometimes. So looking at the protocol in isolation does not let you answer that question as deep as Mayank and Sant did here. So you maybe want to take also a look at, let's say, the two biggest competitors and see what they're doing differently to make sure that this answer has more content and this is more valuable. And as a bonus, on top of that, the base information here, they also compared it to similar products and mentioned how this has, like, how they have innovated on other products, who it is targeted for, like you just heard at the beginning, and who offers similar products, but what are the differences here? So going back into that, what is innovative, what is new aspect again, this really is the heart of this question. And I think they did a really good job here at pointing out what this is. Can we have the next slide, please? Awesome, thank you. So here, market fit and demand, I took my own answer here because I just knew I didn't want to go through all of them. I just knew that I had this nice overview of like this graphic here, and I think this is something that I was referring to at the beginning, and it displays nicely of what we're looking for. You can see this graphic here really shows the market for ETH staking, and it shows I don't know where I found this the sources in there, but this is what we were looking for with this answer is, first of all, like, how many users does it have? And this is also answered here. You can see there are at the very bottom there are 31,500 holders of staked ETH, which is the number of users people who stake ETH. And this is the Lido Finance protocol, by the way. So number of users is covered. TVL is covered at the bottom too. And then an overview of the market where you can see the Lido share in blue. So, and this covers this answer pretty well, I think. Again, the expected answer is an explainer of the market, a high-level overview of the market, the demand explained in let's say, the demand explained, and then confirming this with KPIs like number of users, TVL, trading volume, if it is a DEX, for instance, or outstanding loans for lending protocols, and so on. Just applying the right metrics here. Of course, it's number of holders, how many people have actually staked their ETH with Lido Finance, because that is their service, decentralized staking of ETH. And bonus here is total market size and market share of the protocol, which is also visible in this graph. This was probably a lucky, also a bit of a lucky finding that somebody created already this chart. I'm not sure if this is available for every protocol. I don't think so. So either you create it yourself, or sometimes you find these gems by doing deep Google searches. Cool. Yes, the next one is target market size. And this is again, this is from the Index Coop report, which was again written by Mayank and Sant in the last contest. And I think they again did a great job at describing lots of things of the market. This is just a screenshot I took, and it doesn't cover all of it. There is like another image in there. There is more text in there. So, but just because of the size, I added just this subsection here. And you can see they clearly define the target market size in DeFi and in traditional finance. Here, the first sentence says, index tracking mutual funds currently holds 8 trillion in assets. As of the time of writing, Index Corp currently has over 380 million in assets. And so taking the traditional finance comparison and the DeFi and the protocols comparison, they also compare it to the overall DeFi market, which did not make it into the slide, but it's in their answer. So this is what we like to see here is like this the TradFi comparison, showing some growth metrics, which they also do. And as a bonus, if you want to apply some future thinking and like giving some estimations of how this market could potentially grow. Sometimes these numbers are available on the internet, sometimes they're not, and if you really have the means to do so, feel free to give out your own prognosis if that is possible. Do you have a specific source you are using for your analysis. We will come to that later. Not one specific, tons of sources, but depending on what I'm looking for, there are a few that are recurring. Yes, but we'll come to that in a minute. And what I also want to point out is here they also use a graphic at the bottom, global stock market size, and compared to total value locked in DeFi, and you can clearly see there's a few zeros missing, and so from there you can assume that this is going to be a growing market, and I think they also added that in like the text of below the graphic. So yeah, just a great example of describing the target market. We can move on. Yes. So competitiveness, I think we covered that pretty well in the previous chapter. Here, pretty simple, as I said, pie charts or something similar are perfect. This is now the Bancor report from Original SK. He even highlighted Bancor network in yellow. He did a screenshot of Dune Analytics dashboard that looks at the DEX market. This dashboard is one of the most famous ones of Dune, I think. I also use it quite a lot if we do these reviews, and I urge all the raters, if they're doing a DEX review, please use this dashboard. It has 20, 30 or even more metrics on there, looking at the DEX market from different angles, comparing these protocols with different metrics, and it's just a great source of information for like the overall DEX market. And so Original SK has applied this here. He has, you can see here, the Uniswap is having almost 80% of the market, which is probably still the case, but nonetheless, Bancor is in the top 5, top 6, which is fair. And so he compares Bancor to its competitors by using here the trading volume, the daily trading volume, and then he uses the market share of the daily trading volume, right, which is important. He also uses TVL, because all of these, as you know, all of these DEXs, liquidity pools, they need TVL, they need liquidity for their trading. So this is a second important metric for DEXs. He also uses that at the bottom. You can see here Bancor's TVL with 1.8 billion is not so far behind its competitor, Sushi with 4 billion, Uni with 8 billion. So you can see here that the trading volume is not everything. There is different metrics that you can apply, and this is obviously the case for all the markets. And so this is what we want to see here. Expected answer, compare the protocol to the market, use different KPIs depending on what market you're in, and compare it to its competitors. So this is one of the more simpler answers to answer if you have that sort of information available. And bonus for explaining where the different market shares comes from. So like if you want to take the nuanced approach and even figure out maybe somebody is cheating a little bit. Probably cheating is not the right word here, but somebody is highly incentivizing usage of its protocol through a massive token scheduled token emission schedule, right, where you're highly incentivized to use it because they're just throwing tokens at you and you get extreme high rewards. So as a bonus, you could look at these things as well. And there you can potentially get an understanding of, hey, why is everybody using that protocol at the moment? Maybe because they're overdoing it a bit with the LP rewards, compared to somebody who is not having any LP rewards. And this adds the metric of, no, it's not really a metric, but the angle of sustainability into that comparison as well. Like how sustainable is that market share? Is it just a moment in time where that protocol is used by everyone and then it's like a dying star, it's going down again, or is there really potential here? But this is this is bonus, and I don't think it's needed for the main answer. But always great to see. Cool. And the next slide, please. I see we are approaching time. So Oh yeah, this is already the last question. Here I took a question from Rating Pepe, who is also one of our longest serving raters and the only grandmaster that we currently have. He is a really great analyst. So if you ever have any questions, please feel free to also reach out to him. He's going to do a talk as well, I think on governance. So the 4th talk, if I'm correct. So definitely encourage you to join his talk, because he is way more used to that than I, because he does these webinars quite often. Yeah, integrations and partnerships. Again, I think I explained quite a bit of that already before. So we want to see like who has built on top of the protocol, and vice versa, who has the protocol built on top of, right? 2 different things. And the first one is more important. The more I've built on top, the better. Who has integrated its services, who are its partners, and other relationships. And as bonuses, as we mentioned before, if possible, try to figure out the meaning of the relationship. How strong is it? How useful is it? How binding is it? And like how strong are its dependencies? Like, could the protocol live, let's say, without its partnership to XYZ? These are the questions you want to answer here. But this is again bonus. And yeah, be aware of logo collections that don't mean much. And if we want to look at the example here, you can see that at the bottom he wrote the nature of this collaboration. This is, by the way, is looking at Convex. Convex, which has built sort of a yield optimizer similar to Yearn, but also on Curve. So he writes, the nature of this collaboration is purely financial. If Convex strategies and incentives become minimal, Yearn will drop them in a heartbeat, and vice versa. So he sort of analyzes what kind of relationship it is between Convex and the potential partner. Cool. Next slide, please. Yeah, so I'm just going to go quickly, like a few minutes, through some tips and some mistakes. So this is most of that is also available on our Git book, but I think it's still worth mentioning, and definitely something that you want to apply when you write these reports. So always try to find the best sources. Easier said than done. But the more you do, the more you rate, the more experience you get, the better you get at finding these sources. Apply critical thinking and don't just copy from the website. Here the tip is ask yourself, would I be fine recommending the usage or maybe even investing in the protocol to my family members? And this is like the question you should ask yourself. Look for previous analytical reviews of the protocol, not necessarily rating reports like we do, but quite often you would find reports similar to ours, but from other sources, which is always interesting to look at. There is lots of other information providers out there, lots of analysts, and sometimes they do analyze a protocol like we do, and they publish that information as well. So this is always a good starting point as well to get yourself familiar with the protocol and get an overview of, hey, what might I be looking for? Learn from experienced raters as you're doing now, and by reading old reports, and then just use the protocol. Pretty simple. Gives you also a good feeling and understanding of what its offering is, and finding out maybe also what is the difference between that protocol and its competition if you even use both. And last but not least, we do have a page that is called Helpful Resources. It's on our Git book. I can send the link right now so that you can easily find it. It's under raters, and then there's this source called Helpful Resources, and it just has a list of potential sources that you could look at for doing these reports. Cool. Next slide, please. Yeah, this is some of the mistakes that we see quite often when we do these reviews. It's not necessarily mistakes, but just things that are easily avoided. The first one is there is no explainer for the scoring. So a person does maybe a nice summary of answering the question, but then it just gives you the score. And sometimes for us as a reviewer or as a voter, then it's hard to understand where does the score really come from, because not always you could find their way of thinking in their answer. And so it would be really nice, and many people also start doing that, is giving a quick explainer of, for this I'm giving the protocol 5 points, but because of that I'm taking again 1 away, and because of that the protocol has earned another 10 points or something. Just as simple as that, giving a brief insight into your thinking for how, when, and why you gave that scoring. So this is not really a mistake. This is probably again a good tip for you. But a mistake we see quite a lot is that people tend to be too generous when it comes to scoring. They maybe want to be nice, or that's just because they rate protocols they're really excited about. Different reasonings here, but we prefer to have a critical score. And I think it's more valuable to be critical here than to just be fans of everything. Of course, we're all fans of the space, and this is why we're here, but we need to try to watch at it from like a neutral standpoint as much as possible. And so here my tip is to calculate the end score that you get and look at it, where would it be standing in like the overall scoring of the prime ratings. And this will give you a sense of, oh, if I give it 15 points here, 15 points here, 15 points here, I'm going to end up with 75%, and 75% is going to put it into the top 20. And then you can think again, is this protocol really a top 20 protocol compared to who else is up there? Or maybe was I a bit too generous in like certain sections? And so this is a way of looking at this from like a more neutral perspective. That is something we encourage. Similar thing is isolated analysis. This is really difficult to circumvent, but the more you know about the space, the easier it gets. So people tend to just look at this one protocol and give it high scores. But then when you would place it next to its competitor, you would see that you were way too generous because competitor is doing this better, and doing this better. And so this is also good. Like, it's probably difficult for the first report, but it's always good if you stay in a similar market for like the first 3 or 4 reports. So you start to get a really good understanding of the players in the market, and then you get a more holistic overview of that and can analyze and evaluate these protocols in a more holistic way. And next one, the last one mistake that we see quite often with new joiners is that they only use very few sources, and most of them come from, like, we call it internal sources, which is everything that the protocol provides: website, Gitbook, Medium. And these are typically just positive news, right? Obviously. So if you really want to make sure that you also get a second opinion, try to find different sources than just the website or their blog post or something. Obviously, usually there's quite good information on the Medium because they provide, most protocols provide product updates on there. So it's a good source for information on how does it work and what do they offer. But then again, you still want to use different sources to apply that critical thinking. Cool. I hope that was helpful. I think that is it. Or do we have another slide? Yeah, this is just the examples I used here, plus a few others. So these are previous reports. I think most of them won either best report or something in that area, or were just generally regarded as good reports. And if you find time, I would recommend to read through them. So the ones from Mayank and Sant, and PyDAO, Perpetual Protocol, Convex, many of Rating Pep. Rating Pepper tends to be really critical, and so it's a great source to look at. Okay, how does he think about these things? And he's really on the opposite side of being generous, and so this is always a good source to look at. And my own, and the one I used here, and Aave, and I did a few others, and also happy to answer questions on these reports. So that was it. Thank you, Peter, for joining. He has to leave, and now we still have 45 minutes for questions. 15 minutes for questions. Or that really is the last slide, is it? Yes. Awesome. Cool. I'm going to stop the recording here so that we can do